All right, we'll call to order. Thank you everyone for coming to the July 1st Dorchester Aeronautics Board meeting. We'll start off with the minutes from last week. Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? It's pretty simple. Last week we basically just introduced Mr. Crayon. Welcome to the party. And just adjustment of the fuel farm timeline. Mr. Craven, I think you were going to talk about a little bit of that this meeting, correct?
Yeah, so when you're ready in the agenda, I'll just plug in my computer. And
Okay. All right. Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Approved. All right. That's all I have. Do you want to start off with yours, or do you want us to go through our items first? What works best for you?
It's your meeting, you run it. I'll answer whatever questions. I'll brief whenever you want me to brief.
Okay. I'll strike while the iron's hot, I guess, then. Mr. Peter Smith from Mr. Councilman Mr. Smith emailed me today talking about the hangar leases. He says it's in legal right now. It's in legal's hands to work through that. I guess my question is, do we have any timeline on legal when we can expect next steps? I know this is something we've been talking about for a while now, but I don't know if we have any next steps of how long before we can get some actionable items.
No, I understand that there's a pressing need to have it done as soon as possible. My first monthly meeting with Mr. Ward will start on Monday for July. So that'll be one of the topics. So I'm hopeful, we'll get some answers soon. It's not in my, this is well above my pay grade to kind of go, but I'll continue the pressure from my end.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, for us, if there's anything we can do to support that, I know it's an illegal. I was hoping Brad was going to be here, but he's not. But if there's anything that we can help from our side to kind of make suggestions, let us know. We're trying to look for kind of the next step instead of, hey, it's sitting in someone's court and we don't know when they're going to do the next step. So if there's anything we can do, let us know.
Yeah, if I see anything to where I can push it to you as a way, even, in any time during the month, I'll be sure to send you guys.
Awesome. Okay. And then one thing I was going to ask, on the last email you sent, there was a couple weeks ago, you talked about all the lights. You mentioned in the email the PAPIs were working. I'm assuming the PAPIs aren't working quite yet. But I saw there was someone out there working on them the day before yesterday. Was it, Rob? Was it the day before yesterday? Is that something that we can talk about?
PAPIs. Yeah, that's been rough. So yeah, the taxiway lights went out the first week I was here, so that was pain. But those are back and operational. The PAPIs were up for probably less than a day. This was a couple of weeks ago. So I took the NOTAM out, went home, came in the next day, and Amanda's like, yeah, we got a report last night that they're out. I'm like, okay. So I put the NOTAM back in and called the tech out. He was in the other day. So we went through bulbs burned out and the bulbs are out, and then it was more than that. There was a component that we thought it was, and that's probably what you were talking about. He was fixing that, and then he noticed that it was a voltage amperage issue. So then they were up just the other day. I didn't even take the NOTAM out. I was just like, I'll let it sit.
Yeah.
I went out there about an hour later and they were down. So I've already been in touch with our technicians through the SCAC, and they believe it's probably the motherboard in there that's unable to regulate that amperage. So they said they got one on order. They're hopefully late July at the earliest. So
Okay.
PAPIs on 2.4 are going to be down for at least a month, and then of course 6 is a separate issue altogether.
Okay, that I was going to ask, so do we have confidence that 2.4 doesn't have any issues of being turned on from a regulatory perspective, from
Correct.
FAA perspective? So we can get 2.4 up and running?
Yes.
Awesome, okay.
2.4 is just a component,
Okay,
physical hardware problem, period. Yeah.
okay, awesome. Because I don't know, we've always talked, we didn't know really why. We never known why both were out. We always kind of assumed that both were out from a regulatory FAA perspective,
Right.
but I
Yeah, so
didn't know exactly.
I've identified on both ends of the obstruction issues. So on the approach to 6, the PAPI's off because of the trees in the back corner near your property, sir, somewhere over there. I've got requested quotes from surveyors to give me a price to be able to stake our property, and then once I do that, then I can either, I got word that there might be a contracted tree removal service for the county. If not, then I'll work through the SCAC, whoever's cheaper, to be able to get those removed. So once that gets down on runway 6, then that PAPI is usable.
Awesome.
After the FAA comes in and
Yes.
does it, right. And the components and hardware are fine, so that should be good. I've identified the one tree that's causing this isn't a PAPI issue on 2.4, it's probably the minimums, or the minimums are high, and I don't know for sure about the unusable at night, but I assume it's probably related. I haven't been able to get anyone in the FAA to contact me. The infrastructure people in the FAA I've got good comms with, but anyone in the flight and the safety and those, it's a mess. I can't get a hold of anyone to kind of weigh in. But once I get those trees down, then I'm hopeful that the mins will go down and that it'll be usable at night. But this will be once that gets done and I can actually get FAA flight check to come out.
Okay.
I don't know when they come out regularly. Whenever they come out of cycle, that's an extra cost of money. So it may be we just have to wait until the regular cycle comes out. Once again, I can't find that right person to give me that office to give me those answers that I want for the approach to 2.4 and what is our regular FAA flight check schedule.
Okay. Yeah, because
Confirm that the trees are on our property though?
I'm nearly 99% sure. Like once the survey gets done, but I'm pretty sure that if you see those dead trees, kind of a line of dead trees, I'm pretty sure that's the 75-foot tree. There's the one 75-foot tree that's identified that's causing that to be a problem. I'm pretty sure it's in that little row. But to be on the safe side, we need that, survey done before we can get anyone in. Yep.
So, Jeff, whenever I was, we ran the drone imaging and everything for him, I dealt with David Smith. Do you know anything about him?
I could look at my emails to see who I sent.
The only reason is that's the guy I actually sent the LAS file
Oh, okay.
to, and he's at the South Carolina Aeronautics Commission.
David Smith at the
Project manager and airport safety inspector.
Oh, okay.
I can get that information
If
for
you
you.
could just send it to me,
Yep.
yeah, via email, that'd be great.
And I would definitely, when you're, just in my experience, as a professional land surveyor, when you look at that, a land surveyor's, when they go to stake something, they got to know the boundaries, and that's where a problem's going to be at.
Okay.
Because I've taken it upon myself to even try to do a boundary on this just to help out. But there's been over the years, it started with 150 acres, it's gone up to 350 by just piecemealing properties that the county has acquired, but just by conveyances over by deeds. There's no boots on the ground work been done.
Yeah.
All we have are preliminary plats all through the stuff. So it's going to take more than just staking a line or whatever. It's kind of like thinking you've got to have something to start with.
That's what that quote pays for, right? Is all that legwork
Well,
to all
I would
that.
just make sure that the first and foremost thing you're going to have in order to do this, you're going to have a boundary survey.
Okay.
You've got to know what you have to start with.
Okay.
And with that boundary survey, you'll know where those lines are. And if they don't show you where the lines are, I'll come out there and look at it and help you with that. But I've always said they've got to start with that. It's going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
For those, but you need to get someone that's actually really good into especially with airports. But there's going to be a lot of that.
Do you have your recommendation?
I don't want to put any recommendations. I don't do work in Charleston anymore, really. I'm in other markets. But I think you're going to get someone that has to have a lot of extensive boundary research.
Okay.
Because you're going to spend just about as much time in the register of deeds as you are on the ground. Because there's so many deeds and plats that are just thrown together. And it's going to be a little bit of a mess. It's going to cost.
Yeah.
But it's going to be worth it when you at the end.
And that's all I could do is
Yeah.
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 this is the first step, right? And, when it comes
That's
to
the
how much
first
it
step.
costs, and then I have to plead poverty, right? And then
And I would suggest if you guys do get the boundary, get a CAD file for yourself. And, I'll be glad to come up there and help you and show you whatever, on there.
okay.
One thing that's interesting, so I just looked it up. So straight in or circling 2-4 is not available at night on the approach plate. So it's interesting that 2-4 being a hardware only issue is, we have that limitation from the FA's approach plate perspective. So that is interesting, that because I would imagine if it was a regulatory issue on 6, we would have runway 6 have an issue with nighttime operations. So it is interesting that it seems to be the opposite runway.
I don't know what the men's, and not being a pilot background, being air traffic and airfield, I don't know where you come up with those mins. I just, if it's the obstructions that are usually I'm concerned about the imaginary surfaces.
Yeah.
The 34-to-1 slope on your approach corridor, and anything that penetrates that. Like, that's where my concern is. When the FAA does their thing and their instruments and their little TERPs, right? TERPs is the term that is used to kind of create all that stuff. Usually it's the obstructions that are the problem. I don't know if it's the PAPIs that are causing that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting because, 6 is our lower minimums, and 6 is our lower minimums, but we have regulatory issues for getting our PAPIs on 6. It seems odd that it's that way.
Seems like that would affect the minimums too.
Correct.
Right.
And not 2-4 when 2-4.
Maybe they're not as organized as you expect.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, that answers that. I appreciate that because that's great information for, at least for me, because knowing
That's more progress than I've seen in a long time.
that, exactly. Thank you. That's more progress we've seen a long time. Okay. The next thing, we talked a little bit in the past, just offhand, between ourselves about kind of a development plan for kind of the usage of the airport, just in general, just with, transient users or local users. Do we kind of have anything that we're kind of building on that, or anything we can kind of talk about yet, or is that still something that's kind of on down the line a little bit still?
1 year down the line.
So are you kind of talking about how the ramp looks and how the ramp is being used? Is that
I would say
kind of
not-
the direction?
I would say not ramp for me. My question is more so like we have tenants that are using the airport for operations. We have an FBO right now that is using the fuel, but they're month to month, and there's not a contract. And so just kind of overall, like how are we looking from managing anyone that say someone comes off the street and says, "Hey, I'm going to set up a hot dog stand and start selling hot dogs at the airport. I have a business license." Are we working on something to set up a plan for, yeah, you can operate here, no, you can't operate here. If you want to operate here, here's the guidelines of
Yes.
the box that you need to fit into.
Yeah, so let's do a quick, my 1 month survey, kind of what I've seen. So the manual that I've referenced, I'm working on, we're up to about 18 pages. And in there, I've got a section for commercial use. And if you haven't seen, it's similar to what Berkeley has in their manual, I don't know what they call it, resolution or something like that. There's also a North Carolina, when I was doing my searching, that has very similar language. It almost looked like Berkeley copied from them. So I'm like, sweet, I'll take stuff from my Air Force, stuff from Berkeley, stuff from this.
Probably copied from something.
Well, that's not, as long as it works, it works. But in there, it goes into detail on if you are if you're someone who wants to sell fuel, this is the steps that you need to do. Because we're getting a fuel farm, but that doesn't mean that someone may want to come in and be like, I want to sell fuel too, right? So there still has to be kind of a process. So that's already outlined in that kind of manual. That's just guidance. Once that's in place, then you need kind of the infrastructure, behind that, like the actual process to do it. And so once we kind of get that in place, we'll start building that process. Like, here's how you apply, here's the form you fill out, here's the process that it's reviewed. Like, those are details that'll be built later. So current users, new users, that's how it'll be going forward once that manual is kind of published and finished. My plan is that put that manual in front of the board and the council and have them sign it. So it's not my word, it's not my guidance, it's the council's guidance. So when I tell you to do something or you're in violation of the guidance, it's not me that you're upset at. So that's the infrastructure that needs to be put in place. Future development, how I kind of see it, we are pretty confident, highly confident that we will get design funding for the apron and I don't know, call it an apron, taxi lane extension, the growth behind the airport. And that could, until I see, I've kind of done my measurements loosely on GIS and did my best, and we could put quite a few hangars depending on how much space we get back there. So imagine growth back there and the addition of new, businesses, a place for CSU Aeronautics to be. I have a good list of hangar requests that was given to me by Dawn in chronological order. So I've got a good working, I know who was first, I know who's second, based on written date. There's gonna be people like, oh, I've been talking years. I've got written documentation. It's in that order. That's just how it's gonna be. I think there might be enough in that back that should appease most. So I think most people should be happy. So that's what you'll see possibly being designed next year. And then this time next year, we'll be awaiting approval for the funding to actually build it. So calendar year 2026 is getting the funding for it, with construction possibly as early as sometime calendar year 2027. That's actually, you got trees being cleared, and it's gonna be rough because that drops down really quick. So, there's a lot of work that has to go into that. So I don't know design-wise how long it's gonna take to design and how long it's gonna construct. So I'm telling everyone at least probably 2 years out from now before that comes to realization. And then after that, our plan is to revamp the current layout of the ramp. It's sorely needed. I've got vegetation growing underneath planes. That's a huge, huge problem. I'm trying to get a crack sealant, something, how much, if I can afford to do that, that will maybe limp us until we get into 2 years, 2029. Just all these projects are 1 year design, 1 year construct, 1 year design, 1 year construct. So if you're constructing in 2027, 2028, we're now designing the next project, which would be that ramp overhaul. I think a new design of part of the ramp is needed to account for some of our bigger aircraft, the way we're marked. I think we have 40 feet, so like a 50-foot, trying to do public math. I have a 15.5 foot wingtip clearance is what I need. So I've got 40 feet from center line of the taxi lane to the edge of the end of the ramp. So what's that, 25 feet? So I could have a 50-foot wide plane get through that taxi lane safely. Today we had a Challenger get through with 70-foot wingspan. So I've got to start accounting for some of these bigger planes. So that concrete area that has, I think, 4 spots, that's probably gonna have to go down to 2 and have to be big enough to be a painted pull through. So I'm picturing a transient ramp, if you've been to any larger facilities that have bigger planes that come in that are transient over in that back corner. So we may lose a few spots for a short time. And then after that ramp project is done, the next one after that is to extend it out to where that dead plane is, which, knock on wood, I'll have out. I've got a buyer. I've got someone who's getting ready. They called me today. As soon as legal says go, they'll be here in 2 days and get that plane. But imagine the ramp going out to about where that plane is.
I think the Challenger will probably be back.
Oh, it definitely will be back. And other citation, big, I'm still learning the planes, but the big corporate jets, the business executives that are coming in now and will continue to come in and possibly increase coming in. So
You can move
I
that
have
little
to.
blue thing over there where that old airplane is.
The old blue thing?
Yeah, little tiny little blue thing, the little baby thing.
Oh, is that yours? I did see that today, and I was like, man, I wish that wasn't there right now. But there's some things that I foresee that are needed operationally. We're parking planes on taxi lanes. We're parking vehicles on taxi lanes. I mean, these are all things that you can do in a small airfield with, back in the day when they said 2 or 3 planes a day. But today, it's going to be slow, but we're going to have to be more rigid out there. I think if I can paint a wingtip clearance line, which is, you've seen it like the 2 dash lines places, if I can do that on that taxiway line or taxi lane right by my building, it would be about 15 feet, and which would also give some an ease for vehicles as well. It's not a driving lane, but it would be okay. As long as I'm inside that line, I'm good. I'm not gonna hit a plane. But I also can't park there either, right? So I'm not saying changes need to be made tomorrow, but these are things that I wanna be talking about of, we're gonna have to start treating the airfield and the ramp, not like our backyard.
Do you, on that same note, do you have any good candidate potentials for line techs to start helping with some of that ramp
Yep.
coordination and the
Mr.
ramp
Ward,
space?
yeah, Mr. Ward approved it today.
Okay.
Yes, I hired someone and Mr. Ward approved it, and it's probably like the 3rd week of July start. And I should, by next week, finish. Tomorrow's my last interview for the part-time positions, and so by probably Monday of next week, I'll choose those. So by the last 2 weeks of July, I'll have a staff up there, and as soon as I have them a computer and a phone, then that will be, I'll contact the FAA and make sure all of our published information is changed. I haven't done that yet because don't have it, and I need bodies to take services off of Eddie's hands.
Yeah.
Before I can't take them because I can't in my
know-
position. So
And we've talked about in the past, in informal settings, but, for me personally, when that person comes, I'd be more than happy, and I know a lot of the members would be more than happy to go and work with the guys for an hour and say, hey, here's where you can hook the tow bar, here's where you can tow, here's some things to look for, here's some things to look for on this airplane, just to kind of get them that experience if they're a candidate that doesn't have that kind of experience.
yeah, I'm also going to see if Berkeley's accommodating to where I can send them over there for some job shadowing. We don't have any equipment to do any tug or any of those tow operations, so that will be limited. Maybe in future growth, if the county wants to pay for some hangars or some kind of storage space and then start buying some of that type of equipment, and then I can easily go down that road. But for a while, the only thing I'm really going to be able to do is just,
Marshall.
I don't even have a vehicle to marshal. So I don't have a place to store, a golf cart or
Yeah.
anything like that. So we're going to be limited, but we will fuel and we will provide. If I'm hopeful we have a fuel program where I at least have fuel trucks, and we can go out there and take the truck to where the jet is and work that way. And we're going to do the best we can with what we got.
So is that, if you're envisioning that, is that then the changeover now where Pelican is not going to be the fuel provider once you have these line techs in place?
No, I don't foresee us taking over the fuel until that fuel farm's over. That'll be that
Okay.
easy transition. I'll have the individual work with Eddie just so he gets hands-on experience and all that. So I'm going to instruct that so he'll be familiar long before he's on his own.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
I got a quick question.
Yep.
Have you heard anything from the county? We talked about the plans for building extra hangars over there. Are they still just going to build the pads, and whoever wants to build the hangars, build the hangars? Or is the county going to build the hangars?
I don't know. I expect, and what I've been telling people is I can only assume it'll probably be the way it has been, which
Okay.
means there will be lots or however they divide them up, and then whoever the lease is agreed with and paperwork is done, and then it's yours, and then you have X number of period of time to build X structure.
Okay.
That is my assumption only, right? So I'm only going on precedence of 40-year lease and the owners build it themselves, unless I hear otherwise.
I was going to bring up, so Mr. Nolan, you brought up last time, we brought to me beforehand, talked about office space leasing. You want to bring that topic up?
So, I was talking to Don, and he's been talking to all of us for a while
That's not really in my particular decision making, so I'll be directed one way or the other. So that's between him and the county. It's a topic that I will bring up. Any of these things that I don't have answers to, I will bring up when I meet with the county administrator on Monday. And he's already told me that's one of the topics.
Yeah, because for myself, I think having a DPE on hand at an airport is very valuable for that airport. It brings a lot of business to that airport just from pure fuel cells. People come in and do a check ride there,
Yeah.
right? And then from a DPE perspective, they're very much a single man shop, single office. Here's a broom closet. That's all they need type perspective. So for myself, I think Don is a great asset to have there and to keep there as an office tenant. I wouldn't want to expand it and say, oh yeah, well, Cisco that has a building down the road needs an office space, they can come rent this. No, it has nothing to do with aviation. I think it needs to be something with aviation, someone that we know in aviation, someone that's connected to the county in aviation. So for me, it makes sense for someone like Don to be able to continue to lease that property, or at least that office, I would say.
Yeah, to me, that's just like the leasing agreement situation. I don't have a stake in the fight either way. I'm fine either way. I'll work with whatever decision is made. I've done a little bit of the research. Having a DPE at an airport is very common and known to be an asset. It doesn't say it needs to be in the FBO. It doesn't say any of that, but just having one on site. So whether it's in that office or in his hangar, I don't know which one's.
Yeah.
To me, whatever the agreement is between him and the county.
I don't want to speak for other members, but I would say, from my perspective, and I think the board as well, collectively, we could all agree that we say, yeah, if this is something that goes to Jason Ward on, hey, what does the board think about this? I think we can all agree that we say, yeah, we would stand by that decision to allow someone like that to release that space.
I will carry that water for sure.
There is another DPE as well operating at UIP. And the conference room is out of service. We actually don't have any space to do check rides right now, so just.
So what does it take to get the conference room back?
Carpets.
Yeah, if you haven't been inside the terminal lately, then
Yeah.
Did it
Water, water leak.
we had I selfishly asked for a phone and computer networks and all that stuff, and in the middle of that infrastructure improvement, a water pipe leaked
Yeah.
extensively. But the good news is, my silver lining is, the carpets that I wanted to at least either one get really washed really well or replaced.
So you're saying that impact drill to put your foam out on the wall did it?
I'm just saying I'm willing to go through a little trouble of moving stuff out of my office if it gets me some cleaner carpet sooner. So
Okay. That was the biggest items I had on my list. I was going to open it up and let you
Sure.
you present the fuel farm updates.
So I thought it was important to brief this now because you will start to see work in about 3 weeks. And so you guys can see that on your individual ones? Okay. All right. So just overview slide, you can kind of see in that little red box area, this is where we're going to be talking about over in that fuel cell. So current fuel cell there just to your left, there in that little red block is kind of what you would imagine to be the concrete pad, Jet A and avgas there, contractor laydown area. This is mostly for situational awareness, so you'll know where this kind of general area is going. You can see the road kind of connecting to Big Bird Lane from that image. There's that gate that's right there. They're going to use that exact same gate and come in through that gate, and we will create a free zone for the contractors to work at. Here's kind of an image. I don't know how specifically it's realistic, but don't take every minute detail. I've seen some with the one hose. I've seen some with two hoses. Point is, you're going to have a center terminal for avgas for self-serve 24 hours a day. I don't think it's jet fuel self-serve, but until I'm able to get more information, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm only seeing from the information that I'm given that it's avgas.
Could we put a, I guess, request for information on the jet? Would it be possible to find out if it's going to be a two hose system? For the simple reason that some jets do have an issue with fueling left, fueling right, and you get an imbalance.
Okay.
And so a lot of places will, if they don't have single point refueling, they'll have two hose refueling, so you can fuel both sides of the aircraft at the same time, so you don't have to go back and forth constantly. I don't know of any. Do you know of any 100 low lead GA airplanes that do that? I can't think of anything. I know jets are the big thing, fueling from both wings at the same time, so you can.
Sure.
It's one of those things. Well, while we're doing all this, it would make sense to do it now, because in 6 months afterwards, if we try and ask for it, it's like, oh yeah, we'll get to that eventually, maybe 5 years from now. If we can find that out, that'd be great.
So I've been in touch with,
This is a big deal, the amount.
Yeah, because
You're
what-
putting a lot more Jet A than you are into a 172.
Correct, and the thing is, it's the balance. So
Yeah.
so you can do up to 75 a side, and so you had to go back and forth, back and forth. You can do fuel both sides, and then the problem is that increases the line tech requirements, but it makes it a lot easier for a lot of fueling aircraft.
no, and what I don't know exactly is if we're getting, because you can see there it shows that there's a point, the area where it says a single point
Yep.
line there. So don't have the exact details on that, but I'll take that and see if I can. I've been in touch with the fuel tech company, but I didn't want to bother them too much on that my initial call. But I needed to call them back anyway, so I'll see if I can get a little bit more details on the exact fabrication of ours.
Okay.
And then, so that's what you'll see, some bollards, and then it won't be in a raised containment unit because they are double hold, and it'll have the safety components to, check for leaks and all that stuff.
Are we gonna put a shield over the checkout for the self-service?
As like a weather protective. Once again, I don't know if this image is exactly right. I'm only using what I've been kind of given. And I saw another image from my pre-con meeting, but that was hard copy. This is the only kind of soft copy that I was able to use. And that one looked different. So that's what I'm saying. I think it might be more, this may not be 100% accurate, but it's at least a good representation.
Yeah.
We'll kind of put it at that.
And I'll echo what Dr. Nolan said. So having that simple little rain weather cover for that kiosk, you'd be amazing how much money that's going to save in the long run, because we've all been to airports where you go to your self-serve pump and you can't read the screen because the sun's baked it, and they have this little Velcro thing over it to try and see what the thing is. And a lot of these
That's
places,
what
they
Berkeley
just
has, right? They've got
Yeah.
like a flap. over it.
it's one of those silly things where one guy at Home Depot for $200 can probably build a little shelter, but okay, it's not as fancy. But just to have things like two hoses and a shelter, like it would just long term. I can see long term it would keep the asset a lot better in condition longer term.
I'll when I reach back out to the fuel tech team, then I'll see if I can get those answers. So this is phase one. So this is what you'll see starting 18 July. It's about a 35-day project with no delays. And so what they're going to do is just lay the foundation and get the horizontal work done first. So the bollards, I don't know if those will go in this phase or if those will be put in at the very end. But so at least for the first month, that's what you'll see out there. They'll do a full setup, and then into the taxi lane, there will be low profile barriers lighted. That's just kind of a general image of what I put in there. When we actually go to lay them, I'll get them as close to the fuel tank as possible for them to operate. And then I'll have to decide on whether or not if I need to close that taxi lane. So the biggest minimal impact to the operators could be that taxi lane may be closed for a month. It's just so you guys, the way I've seen everyone operate around here, that doesn't seem like it's probably too big of a problem. You'll just go around it, I guess that's one advantage in these things. But that's what you'll see for pretty much the month of August. And then when that's all done, they'll clean up everything. And so they do a full mobilization and demobilization. And then they'll come back in the beginning of December. And in the time period between end of August and December is when they will be fabricating the tanks. And then so they'll be back in month of December. This image shows that we're closed down with both of them for the entire 56 days. That's not completely accurate. I made this before I had that pre-con meeting with them. They will stay in the phase one kind of area while they're setting up the tanks. The only time that they'll never both be down at the same time. They will stay in the phase one area until that one is completely commissioned. And so that means the fuel's put in, it does its 10-day soak test. I'm learning a lot about fuel, still don't know 1% of it, but once that's good to go and operational, then they will go through the process to take down the other one. So there will be a time where on the concrete, you can get to fuel, but you will have profile barriers and construction equipment near the old fuel farm. So some of the bigger planes are going to be impacted during that window. Small planes, the ones that get towed over, you'll have plenty of room to get in and get fuel and get out. Hopefully, we do have a fuel service and we do have fuel trucks, and that won't be an issue because then we can take the jet fuel from the truck to wherever the jet is parked on the ramp.
So we'll have a new truck start.
I don't know. That's my number one question on Monday is I've been in touch with a couple of fuel companies, and you kind of have to be a branded fuel. You go into branding with the fuel company, and then that allows you to kind of get those kind of things at either a discount or a lease, or that's what I would propose, but I'm not the decision maker, and money always kind of talks. So ideally that would help me out the most is if a fuel company comes in and inspects us once a year just to make sure we're on track, we're doing the inspections we're supposed to be doing, and helps us by providing trucks. And they have a plethora of trainings as well that goes along with it. So that's very appealing to me coming into this position. So I'm hoping that's the route we go. If that's the case, then that transition should have little impact for people that are parked on the ramp because we can bring the fuel to the plane. And so that's about 2 months, end of January. You know how construction is. February is probably going to be the date by the time you see everything's done and the old tanks taken away and ops normal at DYB. Any questions on how that's going to look? And that's the phasing. That's the expected timeline.
I'm going to ask a silly question.
Sure.
The spacing between the back of the fuel farm and the fence, is there any possible way of moving it closer to the road to allow for future expansion? So essentially, you take this further this way, and then we're eliminating that fuel farm. So again, I don't have a pen to point to, but essentially you can have more access in front to potentially put another row of potentially put another parking row. Again, unpopular opinion now, this far in the project.
I think the long-term plan, and I've put a long-term plan with, I briefly discussed what the next kind of 5 years looks like. I've got that in the PowerPoint as well. And then post that 5 years includes moving Big Bird Lane over.
Okay.
And then all that all those trees is a plethora of.
You're talking
land.
about on the other side of the road right now?
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the long-term plan would be,
You're talking about all this.
right.
Is there any way that we could utilize any of this for parking,
So,
short term?
yeah, so
I mean,
I'm open and
USC is, CSU is struggling with parking
you're talking about vehicle parking.
vehicles.
Yes, I hate seeing vehicles parked in spots that aren't spots.
Mr. Holt had,
And they are
yeah,
all over the place.
yeah, Mr. Holt showed us something, I don't know, a few months back, an old plan showing parking all in that area.
Yeah. Yeah, if we can't move the fuel farm, I mean, that's a great option, because you essentially have, this is removed, and so if your fence is positioned in such a way that you're up here, right, down, you have this whole lot there. And right now, it's somewhat being used for parking, right? So, occasionally there's a vehicle here, whatever it may be.
Your vehicle?
Yes.
Yeah, most of it.
Most of mine. Hey, if he's soloing, I got to be close, right?
No, that's a good idea. I've put in a request of facilities for a temporary fix. See if we can utilize space behind the hangars, the Applebee's hangar and Costas.
Costa, yeah.
Costas. Those two hangars, that space back there. I said, how much would it be, and how quick could I just move the fence, which shouldn't be that much, and just bring in a bunch of gravel and just have an overflow lot that'll get us for the next 2 years. And then that design I'm talking about, that I'm highly confident we're gonna get funding for, I've already told Holt that we need to incorporate on airfield designated parking spots that's available for airfield users. So that way, when you guys are out there, I know there's a need for parking. Like, you need to be able to park out there. I need to be able to paint lines for you to park so you're out of the way of planes. And that's what's needed. And I think that would be designed back there. So my thought was, I'm gonna see if I can gravel back there until that project comes in, but that could also be an area we can utilize temporarily.
So you're talking about graveling there. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you not have a pretty good sized septic field in that area you're talking
The
about?
septic field is off to the right, and it's pretty much,
It's past the new fuel farm.
yeah, but it's closer, I think it's closer up, like just going straight out from the ramp out in that area.
Yeah, it's like a.
It says like something on it,
Yeah.
tells you it's like.
And there's some electrical stuff in that general area as well. So I think that's a good idea. We'll keep, and once that area is clear, and we just kind of have a lay of the land and see what we can do.
Because
It could actually be easier to implement that than behind.
and then also if you go back, well, actually on this slide you have here, so that whole yellow area you have marked, if that's already a contractor laydown, right? That's already somewhere where they're going to be having equipment there, moving equipment in there, and so it's a matter of compacted. It's prime. We have a guy that knows construction better than I do, but
So
throw some gravel in there right now.
my concern, just right off the bat, is you're talking about on airport property.
Yes.
And a fog field.
Inside the gate there.
Right.
Yeah.
So my thought was, it's a gravel lot, but it's off property.
Yeah.
So you have to come through the gate and then drive on gravel, and then you got to go from gravel onto a taxi lane to then exit, right? So that wouldn't be my first choice.
Could we do, like, just move this fence out to here?
Yeah.
And then
And they never
just,
come onto
just
the
build a parking lot straight across from each other?
Right, and then they're never on the airfield.
Then then the airfield ends up being on this side. The parking lot stays outside.
You're taking from the gate all the way across, basically.
Yeah, that's,
You're essentially moving this whole line down to here. And
Yeah,
then
just take this fence that's already here, take it up and
Oh.
put it right here.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Now all this is just part of
that's something that could be done as well. I mean, I would just have to make sure anything, because I know there's water down,
Yeah,
at
further
that
this
corner.
way,
corner
Yeah.
areas, yeah.
I just have to make sure things are good from a utilities standpoint.
But you could almost put the same parking lot that's already there, just
Marriage.
straight across, you know?
You're talking about on airport parking. One thing that, so you're talking behind Costas hangar, I would say personally, I would much rather prefer, if I need to come airport side or air side, to be able to use that back gate. Because there is already, so I was looking on Google Maps.
Yes.
Google Maps here, there is a gate there.
Yes.
It's a manual gate now, but it'd be nice to have that as an automated gate, because coming into Costas hangars, coming to Rob's hangar, coming to all these hangars, I'd much rather come in back here, go to the hangar, then go
Sure.
in here, right where taxi,
Cut down your driving in front of.
I would, which is
love that.
absolutely, which is why when I saw that, because in when I say to park back there, I would have like 2 pedestrian gates.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying park there and you got to walk all the way around.
Yeah.
You park there and you basically have, the distance wise, it's almost the same for the students to park back there to get to where their hangars are
Yeah.
than it would be in that lot. And the users in those back, like you're just saying, I assumed would probably either prefer or be same.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought, well, let's just get them, just do a gravel lot, get them in there. And that would only be temporary, right? Because once that project is good and going, then airfield parking would be incorporated in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I would say, that back gate behind Costa, like if I'd 100% support, having that as an access point for any of my operations for myself.
If facilities is okay with my idea was just to talk to them, when I brought it up to them, that gate wouldn't even exist.
Yeah.
So you would literally, that's where you just drive. It would be wide, it would be nothing there.
Yeah.
That would be the driveway.
Yeah.
Fence up against the taxiway.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can, if the facilities can do it in this year, if they can't do it this year, then it's probably not worth it, because by the time it was able to get done, we would be getting closer to, actually doing work out there, and the ROI wouldn't be worth it. And then maybe go in the direction that you guys are talking about, maybe better because of,
You're closer to here I see
if I
benefit
can't do
from
that
here.
other one, then that would be my second choice. Yeah.
I see benefits here because you're closer to the main building, and it's a matter of better than I do, but I imagine a small crew with a Bobcat can come and push a couple of those poles in a matter of a couple days. Pick them up and move them over. I imagine a couple days for that.
And the automated gates, so we have the one, and it's newer, right?
The one by Pelican, or no? You're talking about the main gate.
The main gate.
Okay.
So that has to open all the way. Do you guys see the sign?
Yes,
Are you guys heating to it?
I am. You have to stop and let it go all the way open before you can go in. It'd be nice if we had.
Opens about 5/8 of the way.
It'd be nice. Well, the problem is if you're too close, it senses it. It'll go all the way open. Yeah. So it'd be nice if we had like a year or 2 years ago, or no, a year ago. Yeah, a year ago before we we've always had gate issues, but about a year ago, if it was opening, you could drive through just fine, and it would continue opening. The sensor would only stop itself if it was closing, and that's how most.
Which would kind of make sense. This one does not. So
That's why I've almost ran into it.
Exactly.
this is a small.
Turn your mic off.
This is a small audience, but it's an influential one. So please, until I figure out my mass distro capability, please get that word out. And that's not just going in; it's also going out.
As I was gonna say, we can put on a sign on the other side as well, because
I mentioned that in the facilities, and they're like, "Didn't they read the sign going?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "We'll probably still need to put it on the inside." But it's we've had gate issues. I've had it stuck open a couple times. This last week I did. Yeah, it was last week.
because it jars. It basically, if it sees something, it
Yeah.
jars stop, and then it waits for a second, and then it starts moving again.
And so
it's
just
a
anything
jar.
too difficult for that gate, it tends to want to lock up. So
Knock on wood. The day it doesn't let me out. So far, that one's never.
Yeah, Jeff, when you're talking to facilities, when I'm looking at a GIS, I think I remember seeing this whenever I looked at an old plat. There's right behind that fence, it's called a dry basin, and it's a drainage structure. That's why there's all that riprap and all that stuff there.
the big rocks.
Yeah, behind. And if you
okay.
go, I'll walk down that whole thing, and all through there is like a big ditch.
Yeah, it goes down.
You just double check with facilities, especially engineering. Make sure that's not a drainage easement.
Okay.
'Cause they could probably move it, I'm sure, but
The easement that existed there at one time, and it looks like it's been dealt with, but
So I've got you can see that's the gravel that we're talking about there.
yeah, is it a big gravel?
Yeah, well, it's a big gravel.
I think it's riprap. It's erosion control
Okay.
something. So just check with the facilities engineering, because
I'm just looking for quick, cheap ideas to help alleviate parking because
So there, I think,
It's a problem.
go back to
That
this
would be
side.
the cheapest and the easiest.
It used to be an easement for Percy Knight to access his property, but now the county owns that, so.
So yeah, so I think, like you were saying, Dusty, you take this, just drag this corner to here, right? Play sim farm and drag the corner there,
Just
and there's
build
where,
like a duplicate of this parking lot out that way.
yeah,
as
you
far
mirror
as
it across,
can.
yeah.
I've heard, long term, that's what they would want, paved and all that over there. But
Yeah.
I'm looking for a quick
Yeah.
fix that's temporary, a Band-Aid.
Yep.
So,
Well, on the road, on Big Bird, they just put gravel down and then they came and sprayed, what was that stuff?
Triple treatment.
What's the stuff they sprayed on?
like the
Oh,
glue?
you talking about when they triple rocked it
Yeah.
years ago? Yeah, it's just where they put an emulsion down,
Right.
gravel and then more emulsion, more gravel, like progressively work to a smaller aggregate.
So they can almost do the same thing over in that spare parking lot.
But even just crusher rock, like just,
Yeah, I mean, I would use like a crushed asphalt,
yeah,
recycled
like
asphalt.
milling or something like that,
Millings, yeah.
yeah. And that'd be just fine because you're not,
Either way, I'm looking at what I can do to help alleviate.
Gravel down, they could come back later if they wanted to and just finish it off.
and and the reason why I was talking about this is all because of, I look at this yellow that we have on the screen here and I'm thinking, hey, if that's your lay down yard for your construction equipment and all your work already, it's like, by golly, they're doing a lot of work there already. They're gonna already compact it already.
It'd be hydro-seeded at the end.
Okay, so,
So he's looking for this year's solution.
Oh, yeah, well, that's true.
but no,
This
so,
could be a January
but
solution.
go back on the slide, because this is phase two. Can you go back a slide? This is phase one, right? And this is where we're doing the grading of that whole area, right?
Yeah, I can't, until February, like I can't have cars parked in that yellow spot. When they're coming in, to take down that, you're talking about after they've removed all of the current fuel farm, which would be February of next year.
Yeah.
But you're not wrong where if I can't get that other one done for whatever reason, cost or, there's like a hump and then it drops, I mean, it's a significant,
And it's a little off camera.
yeah, like it's not, I know it's not that simple, but I just imagine it's like, well, just cars would park on it now anyway, if you could. I didn't know what would affect it if we just threw a bunch of gravel down because we're going to kill the grass. At least put some gravel down to not turn it into a mud hole, and then just remove the fencing. And that is not my specialty. I bring up the ideas, and I have a civil engineering squadron is what I'm used to, and they would say, oh yeah, we can do that, or we could do that in-house. No, we'd have to contract that out, or go, no, that's dumb. You don't want to do that. So
Don't find the endangered salamanders that live there, or the endangered somethings.
yeah.
The advantage of
Or
using,
Indian barrel grounds.
yeah.
Yeah.
The advantage of using gravel is that you don't have to have any sort of an environmental study done.
Yeah.
Or wetland mitigation because of runoff. As long as it's a permeable, which gravel is,
Has to be less than a half an acre now, too.
yeah, then you are okay. I just don't know. I mean, that's a great idea. I like that as a resident out there. It puts her and her students closer to
Yeah.
their airplanes out there. And one last question from me is a resident out in Big Bird I was under the impression in the build out of the airport that I finally seen a number of years ago, you were gonna put a new FBO out in that area somewhere, is that correct? Where was the plans originally for that?
I've seen a drawing where the FBO is on the other side of where Big Bird is now, in that tree area.
Yeah, so is that sort of off the?
I don't know.
The only thing that we've
I'll have
seen,
to show you a picture and I'll bring it to you.
Yeah, I remember seeing a drawing.
Okay.
So there,
Bring some blueberries with you when you come.
Blueberries are about gone, dude. You guys mowed through those.
Oh, my goodness.
so
the only thing that's current
So-
now,
So there's an airport layout plan, and there's an older one, and it shows that whole area of Big Bird being moved and maintenance hangars. It identified stuff. So there's a plan that was many years ago seeing that little area as future growth. I'd have to go back and try to find it to see if there was an FBO. To answer your question, there is no plans. There's these things from the past, but from now, we're guiding. We're driving that train. I've got that 5-year plan that isn't mine. It was already in place. I'm just kind of codified it into digestible information for you guys when I can brief it. And then post 2031, I've got ideas.
Hey, just the fact that we have, discussions about PAPIs and we have plans like that is significantly better than we've ever had.
Getting new carpet now.
We're getting new carpet. By golly, we're making progress.
Mr. Holt brought us plans
Yes, and I
4
think
times ago, and that was for the taxiway and the ramp expansion and all that.
yeah, and I think that's for
The other end, yeah.
this little thing down here. I think
But
that's
he
the only
wasn't saying,
solid stuff.
but he didn't say anything about having, any
Yes.
other area. Yeah, that's what Mr. Holt showed us.
So to answer your question, this, from what I understand, maybe someone can disagree with me, but from what I understand, is the most current, up to date, what we're planning on going forward.
Yeah, I'll just jump into it and be real quick. And so this is what I mentioned is possible, or highly confident we'll have design. I don't know how far deep into that property, which belongs to Mr. Tommy Hancock, but I think if I go as far into that as we possibly can based on that land transaction. This is what I mentioned that follows that. And then, of course, that's filling in the rest up to that. You see where that little plane is out there. So this is what it would look like in 2031 if everything goes to plan when it comes to funding. And then this is what I've kind of pictured up as what could be done as ideas going forward, where it shows that whole area to the right where you have, pick your poison,
Like
where.
that?
That way you don't have to go all the way down, because you could easily turn that home down.
So that's the one of the first things I noticed. I was like, where is your middle taxiway? So
You have to go all the way down.
yeah, and student pilots are not going to make Bravo ever. So seeing those little planes going all the way
Challenge
down,
accepted.
and
Well, I could make Bravo if I wanted to use the brakes.
Yeah, that's true.
but as ops increase, that's always a problem. As a controller, nothing made me more unhappy than to see a tiny little plane taking forever to get off the runway before someone crossed the threshold. So
And I will say, go if you don't. This one's fine. Like here,
Can't see them either. The runway.
yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes you can't see them.
If I go one back, I would say. Sorry. When all that was read, I guess the first slide. Sorry.
This one?
No, the very first one you showed. That one. Yeah, there you go. And I talked to Councilman Byers about this the other day. I was thinking, the county has their pace and the government has their pace on expansions of projects. The one thing I would constantly say is, if there is an opportunity for expansion from the private sector of, hey, here's where you can build, here's where we're going to have a piece of dirt that you can do something on. I know that across all sectors, there is the private sector that does things faster than the governmental sector. So my opinion, allow for the county should allow for plans for future growth to include both their growth of the assets, but also allow for growth from the private sector side of things.
So you're saying private would be putting in
My-
horizontal structure?
My opinion would be, hey, the county continue to focus on building T-hangars and allow for areas for private individuals to put box hangars or.
That's what I assumed was happening. Is that okay?
Correct, but I want to make sure that
I
we
guess
kind of.
I'm
County's not putting in T-hanger.
I don't think the county, from any discussion, is
The land for a T-hanger. Yeah, a T-hanger type style land.
so we can talk design of maximizing that space. We need to maximize that space, period. So
Yeah.
it can't be designed on people's desire. It has to be designed on maxing out the amount of planes you can put back there. And that bottom row, you could have a whole row of corporate hangars.
Yep.
All along that bottom row with parking, off parking, paved and painted to where you'd pull in and be able to access the pedestrian gate right into your hangar, similar to what we were kind of just talking about with that gravel road. So that's already in the design. I've already seen that as a loose design. I don't think the county is in the business of building hangars. They never have been, right? So,
Yeah, and when I say- when I say
as we
hangars,
get to
sorry.
this, when we are going through and the company's coming in and doing the horizontal work, there will be a time when people are cleared, the lease is set, that all can be done to where as soon as that contractor is done with that area and can be turned over for private person to come in and build on that lot, to do it as soon as that possibly can.
Yeah, and when I said,
I don't know where the private gets in the horizontal work.
so when I'm talking about the horizontal, what I'm talking about from a setting up the horizontal work for primarily T hangers or for primarily box hangers to have a good mix of T hanger usage and box hanger usage.
I think there needs to be a mix of both, and we also have the list of the priority as well. The first 6 or 7 are corporate hangars. But I think if I can use all of Mr. Hancock's space land that is going to be given or bought or sold, I don't care how, but we assume it. I'm pretty sure we have enough to where you can have in the middle, I could have a row of at least one 10 unit, and then on the bottom, so basically have a round taxi lane, so where you could have 5 to 6 corporate hangars on the bottom, maybe a couple next to the 2 that are already there, and then 10 T hangars is my rough. I'm going off of measurements off GIS and then doing my wingtip, and that's by using. You guys have 70 feet between those hangars.
Are you talking about between
Yeah.
this side and this side? Yeah.
I think I measured like a 35 between center line, right? So that's a 40. So that's 35 feet, right? So
I can tell you right now.
So that's a 40-foot wingspan is what would be allowed to go in there to not violate wingtip clearance.
See where Don's hangar is?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know which hangar?
Yeah,
Right at that grassy strip.
Yeah.
Is there any plan of letting anybody build there?
I would like to turn that into parking, vehicle parking. But we'll see.
Please no.
I would much rather.
I'd much rather have hangers.
We have to have.
Yeah.
We have to have.
It's a balance. Yeah.
I can't continue to add more people with planes and not give space for
Where to go.
vehicles. I gotta have it. So it's got to be somewhere. So I don't know where. That's my first initial was like, oh well, it's flat and it's nothing there. So sure, I can put plane. There's a vehicle sitting there right there in that picture. So to answer your question, sir, there's no decision made, but.
Yeah, because based on this picture, if you're gonna pave that through there with that red being the red, you're gonna have this open area of the grass now of.
That's still a loose design.
Yeah.
So I would rather just see that paved personally, but, so I don't have to worry about a mower getting in there and do all that. So I personally would just have that paved. I only copied what Holt gave me just because I didn't want to deviate from what they gave me. I will push to try to get that completely paved. And that's at least, if I could have a little bit of parking on airport parking there combined with new parking that would come in at the bottom of that new area mixed with the parking that we currently have, and then any other kind of creative that we can do. We gotta, there's too many vehicles on taxi lanes, period, dot. Like it's you guys don't want to hear it, I understand it, but
It's never an issue for me. I know you keep talking about it, but I don't see it. They might be there loading and unloading, but they never park there
they're parked
on a taxi.
on taxi lanes.
You're talking about in front of the FBO building, basically.
There's some there. And
Yeah, that's,
there's lots of places. Just
yeah.
it's just bad practice. I'm not saying I'm going to be a sheriff and go out there and do all this, but if I can build in a design, and it would be like I would look back, whoever's the airport manager 20 years from now, and be like, geez, they all this stuff, but there's no place to
Yeah.
park someone. We're in that zone where it's like, we need to factor that in, wherever that is.
No, I agree. And here's the truth. Like, I 100% agree. If I could come in for myself, if I could come in from behind Costa, right, from a vehicle perspective, man, it'd be great. And because it's a matter, it goes from behind Costa to the hangar right there, right? And so to get to your hangar from a vehicle perspective, it's the only access to anything. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. The only access to any hangar is via taxiway, right? Doesn't matter which hangar you go to, you have to access it via a taxiway.
And vehicles transversing on a taxi lane is normal. That's fine. I don't have issues with that. I would like to have some kind of marking, so someone who's blindly turning that corner sometimes faster than they should, I don't want them to meet an aircraft head on. And so, sure, there hasn't been an issue, but this is growing, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about adding how many potential hangars, how many more spots? I mean, you have to start thinking, like, you've been in an uncontrolled, easy, small environment for many, many years. You're now crossing that threshold to, you need some built-in deconfliction law and order, right? Yeah. I have no tower, I don't have ramp control, I'm not wanting to do that, but you have to kind of start thinking about, how do we build in self-deconfliction? And vehicles and planes are bad.
I would say, overall, if you look at this map, so we have our vehicle access is only here.
Right.
All right. If we can say this is no longer any vehicle access.
Now, I'm not looking to restrict vehicle access. I'm looking to,
just from a high level perspective, if we can say, hey, this is vehicle access, that's the only thing we have. If that was saying, hey, it's now here.
Yeah, but there's still 30 planes sitting there that people are driving. They're just gonna take the same thing in a long way.
Correct.
anything else, like anything to just even kind of reduce it a little bit is a help. And by building in appropriate wingtip clearance, there's things that I would put in place and mark a certain way that would allow that. I'm more concerned with just the parking wherever.
Yeah.
Like, we need to get out of that slowly. I'm not coming in and saying I'm the sheriff and I'm changing this, as we develop 2 years from now, like, I'm bringing this up now.
Yeah.
So 2 years from now, you're like, yeah, we've been talking about this for 2 years, and like, oh yeah, you know what? We had an almost incident, there will be an incident.
Yeah.
It may not be in my tenure, but there will be an incident if we don't take that kind of approach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Based on my experience running airfields.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Dusty said. It's like, having a secondary access, would reduce some of that. May not fix it, but there's at least a risk reduction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're expanding the way we're expanding and you're keeping a single point.
Yeah, you have a choke point.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Go back to that picture that showed that wooded area to the right.
You're talking about this.
I was trying to see what Big Bird was doing. Okay.
So yeah, there's the current, that airport industrial road, and then it would just create a new road. It looks like it almost turns left a little bit, but then kind of dies. I think they would just follow that road and continue it, connect with Big Bird, and then go from there.
How would that work? How would that picture work? I know it's very preliminary. We're talking 2031 beyond.
Yeah.
How would that work with the fuel farm? Because obviously that's a permanent thing we're putting there, and that's kind of right in the middle of that red zone, I guess is the idea.
This is just me putting something on a slide,
Okay.
right? So would you have to expand the ramp a little to the right so that way vehicles could, get around, or you're adding another gate to get access to it directly from Grayback? I mean, this is
just we're going to do something with this. We don't know what it is.
I wanted, I was going to brief this probably next month or the month after, but since we were on the topic, I just figured I'd throw it up there.
Yeah, that's great.
These are just some of as I've driven around and looked, we need run-up areas because we have students like today we had to have that Challenger ask a plane to move because they were doing a run up, in the area that they were moving. So we need a spot for anyone, really. It's not just student pilots, but even when you're doing, you got to do tests, right? Whenever you're changing planes or doing something, like there's got to be a time for you to go somewhere, do what you need to do out of, and right now, everything is a taxi lane.
Yeah.
That's the only spot you have, so. But please, this is
Yeah, no, and here's the-
5 like this is my concept brain.
I like
as
this
just kind of
because it's never been on the table. It's never been like, hey, we have this little sandbox. What can we build in our sandbox?
This is my initial look evaluation of this is what this airport could be done. Yeah, tomorrow.
Can we put, instead of 2031, can we make that 2026?
Hey, so,
So, hey, you
I hear a
talk
motion
about-
to approve.
You talk about private and government, so all of this, everything, even the first thing, is always funding money dependent. So,
Yeah.
like that's sure, you want it done fast, you want it done right. Like it's all about money.
No, I'll be the first to say thank you again for stepping in. I know you got, a hole that we kind of had to dig ourselves out with taxiway lights in the first week, and now a busted carpet and water leak. So I appreciate it.
No, it forced me into flipping switches out at the regulators, which I had never done before. So,
Just don't stand in the water while you're flipping the switches.
Yeah.
I hear that's a bad idea.
yeah.
That's all I had. Do you guys have any items, any questions? The only thing I'll close with is from a lease perspective of, obviously that's the big thing we keep asking. So if
Yep.
if there's anything between now and next meeting that you want us to all collectively come join on,
No,
just let us know.
I'm tracking, and then you guys will be the first to know. I appreciate the relationship. I think it's good. I think we're all heading in the right direction, and communication's key. So as long as we keep that up, and this is still a honeymoon period, right? So I don't know how long it'll last. So yeah, you're smiles now, but at some point, when I tell you you can't park your truck there, our honeymoon will be over. But yeah, it's good.
Park in the hangar now.
I do
That's
have-
good. That's
I do have
that's
a
what you-
question about your
Yep.
fuel farm
Yes.
process.
Yes.
Is St. George's fuel Bowsers that are deteriorating as we speak in this conversation
Yeah.
at all?
So I've got a tasker that I have to figure that out from Mr. Ward. So I've been in touch with people to see how that might be a longer process. And I'm only saying that because it may require, it's going to have to require everything that's out there now. So I don't think St. George they don't have the foundation for it, right? So
No,
I'd have to.
no. I mean, I'm not talking about moving the other ones to there. I know they're going to come there and be stored there.
We'll set up there.
Well,
Well,
there's nowhere to set them up right now.
that's what I'm
There's
saying.
there's
is
no
I'm-
infrastructure there to set them on.
Right.
Right now, we have a fuel pump that's laying over on its back and a rotting fuel tank.
Yeah. There's no fuel in there, correct?
I haven't stuck my finger in it to find out.
I've been tasked to figure that out and get rid of that is what I've been tasked.
That's my eventual point is there a process in motion to get rid of those?
Yes, I have reached out, and once I know more about our fuel situation, they will help guide me on how I can get rid of that tank. Because
There may be some kind of environmental impact that you have to
right.
do with it.
So the fuel people, they know all that stuff and can kind of tell me and guide me in that process. So once I have that nailed down, I'll have to remove that tank from have them come in, ensure it's empty. If it's not empty, there's a process.
Yeah.
That will happen. We'll have to dispose of the tanks. It'll probably be an RFP bid to, almost kind of do another fuel farm where I lay foundation, lay a containment unit with a cage because it's probably single hold. Then I have to get someone, an RFP to come in and do a full rehab, which would be, the simple, cleaning it up on the outside, but they got to check the inside, check the epoxy coating, do all the pumps, and then probably have to install a terminal there, because what's the point of, if it's not self-serve, I have no one up there, so then I have to put a terminal in, which that can go 20 to 30 grand just in the terminal. So-
I don't see us pumping enough fuel to make that cost effective. I really don't see you setting up a fuel farm up there because we don't have 10 airplanes stationed there. So, we don't have a back
It's
taxiway.
transients only.
And it's not even that, it's CSU buzzing over and, most of the time.
We would like
Could.
to have, so yeah, ideally, and I don't have a plan put together on paper like I just showed you for Somerville, but I foresee growth out there if it were to occur, a parallel taxiway, increased ramp space, increased hangar use, that fuel farm with a self-serve and more than 10 planes stationed out there.
Well, my immediate concern is the rotting fuel tank that's there now.
Yes.
And
I've been-
preventing something from happening, I don't know what's in the tank.
I've been charged by Mr. Ward to run
care of
that
it.
to ground.
The guy that's gonna pick up that Cherokee, does he want some fuel tanks?
Does he want St. George fuel tanks?
It's all scrap metal, right?
I don't know.
And the funny thing is, like, we joke like
That's the they come off your hands.
we joke like that, but I would say from a asset perspective, there is a lot of people that would take that if you give them access to come take it.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
It's not oh wow, well we can, I know there's regulatory things from a county perspective. It has to be removed from the asset list. It has to go through all the paperwork to, it not be a county asset.
Usually an auction for big.
Exactly, right. Once all that process is over, the actual process of getting rid of them is going to be the easiest part of it. Because
Yeah.
people are going to go, that scrap steel, I can use that, I can do something with it. So as soon as we can get to that stage of it, then the sooner
So
you can
I
get
just don't want to be forgotten.
You're
forgotten.
You're not forgotten. So yeah, that is a quick image. That's what I would kind of foresee. I've thought about St. George. I would prefer to take a lot of the operations that are just flying around in circles in Somerville and just shove them all up to St. George. Just like the Air Force goes up to North Airfield and does their
Yeah,
stuff.
like a Northfield for,
That's how I would envision. We're international and St. George is north. And anyone who wants to do, if you're doing any kind of training, not just the school, I always point to the schools, but if there's anyone out there doing, just got to work on their plane and they want to burn holes,
pattern work.
burn the holes up there because at some point it's going to be too congested coming in.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, St. George is critical. So, yeah.
It's critical. And also I would say, was it CSX? That was talking in the past. I'm not sure if you've heard this. So was it CSX? CSX has talked with somebody, I believe it was Don in the past, a lot of times about saying, hey, we'll put money into that airport from our own piggy bank if it means that we can have better this. So keep that in the back of your mind from a operational perspective.
There's money out there that could expand St. George without having to use county.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's all I had. Mr. Craven, thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
Motion to
Make a motion to adjourn?
second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.